Thank you, everybody, for coming. I know we're still, people are still joining, but these are recorded. So if you want to go back and listen to the beginning, certainly can. We have a lot to cover, so we don't want to let too much time slip away. So anyway, I'm Deirdre Brennan, Executive Director of Rails. Thanks all of you for coming. Remember that you can type questions or comments at any time in the chat box. It's easier if you put them in the chat, and if you put them in if you change the setting to all panelists and attendees, as not just panelists or attendees. They can do that, right, Mary? They can change, yeah. That way everybody sees the questions and the answers and the conversation. I mean, there's, yeah, that's just best for everybody. It's easier. That makes it more efficient for us to monitor, so we can get the questions answered faster. So appreciate that. I'll just start with some general Rails news. We are in the midst of an election right now, a board election. We have 2 at-large seats up and 3 trustee seats up. The election is ongoing and through May 7th. And we are challenging you. I am personally challenging all of you to vote, because we always sort of top out around 200 voting and 200 members voting. And, we have a lot more members than that. So I hope if each and every one of you who voted who are here today would vote, that would like double our, total from past. So that would really be great. So, it's on the web, it's on our website, and it will be there through May 7th. You can even vote on the weekends if you want. So if you're bored. So, and yeah, don't vote twice. That's true. Once is perfect. So anyway, that would be great if you would do that. Just a reminder of another deadline. Certification ends on May 15th. Of course, it's been, like in every other way, an odd year. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what the results of certification are. We know that, I think it's probably pretty clear to all of us that we're not going to have normal statistics this year related to anything. And we at Rails have answered a lot of questions from members about, I'm not going to meet this, I haven't been able to do that. And we've just been reassuring everybody. And I know that the State Library has also, and also Heartland, that we understand that this has been a weird year, and the main thing that we need from certification at this point is really to just get as good a picture as we can of how libraries have fared this year. So please, don't worry about it. Just certify, and then we'll just look at the data and take it from there. So and that again is through May 15th. Is anybody out there, Emily, for example, where we are with certification numbers right now? We're close to it?
We have about 300 or so that have not certified.
All right, that's pretty good. Yep, great. Okay, so whoever you are, those 300, please certify. I also wanted to let you know that we are looking to redo our strategic plan starting sometime later this calendar year, probably in the next fiscal year. We did our last strategic plan in, I think, 2017, 2018. Clearly a lot has changed. Transform, there is no big enough word. Change isn't a big enough word. And, we need to, all sort of think about that and what the future might hold, based on what we've learned in the past year, in addition to just, it's time, it's the right thing to do anyway in terms of planning. So, and Rails has been in existence for it'll be 10 years, believe it or not. So it's it's a good time to kind of really look at revision everything. So you'll be very included in that, of course, as you have been the past 2 times that we did this. We are working right now on our budget, and the annual budget and plan of service. A grant request is due into the state library June 1st. We had our first discussion with this at our board meeting last Friday. I think it's not a secret that our budget is really tight this year. We're actually probably going to be, unless we cut some things, in a deficit. In other words, our income will be exceeded by our planned expenditures. Now, our expenditures, generally don't ever, measure, actually equal. They've always been less than the actual what we had planned for. But it's, as I said, it's been 10 years. We haven't had an increase. Neither has Heartland, obviously. So, we're looking at that. We've, certainly mentioned this to the state library and to our board. So I just, wanted you to be aware of that. As I said, some of the, we are going to be putting some money for a, excuse me, strategic planning consultant in the plan of service, the budget. We're also looking to offer some additional cataloging services in foreign languages that aren't currently offered by the Catalog Maintenance Center. We think that's a really important service for patrons, especially as we try to look at all of our services as to whether they, and libraries, whether they're equitable, diverse and inclusive. And obviously that is a very important way for people to get access to our collections. Speaking of EDI, we're strongly committed to equity, diversity, inclusion, and we will be continuing our work with our consultant, Biz Lindsay. And it's time to redo our website. I guess the Drupal version that we're on is extinct, or going to not be supported. So and we need to buy laptops and servers and all those things that make it possible for have programs like this one with all of you guys. So I think that's the big news. I mean, you're going to be hearing about lots of other news later, but those are the sort of general things that I wanted you to know. Any questions from anybody at this point before we move on? All righty. Then I'm going to turn it over to Greg McCormick. Thank you so much for joining us, Greg. I know how busy you are. I know you had a meeting on this topic this morning and probably lots of other times. So, but we would really appreciate it. We all would. I know any information that you can provide about the budget, and certainly, I'm sure that there's plenty that isn't known yet. So thanks for telling us whatever you can.
Maybe the great unknown, but thank you for inviting me today. It's a beautiful day here in Springfield, and it's really nice to be able to join everyone. So for FY22, I think that we are still quite hopeful regarding the funding level for library and literacy programs. The secretaries of state's appropriations that are administered by the Illinois State Library, which includes all types of things for library systems, public libraries, school libraries, for discretionary grant programs, literacy programs. We will, again, our appropriations are estimated to exceed $100 million, which, as we were discussing with the Institute of Museum and Library Services this morning, that's really rather record funding for our state, probably very high in comparison to other states as well, when you're looking at the amount of state funding that's flowing in. And a lot of that is in part to the ongoing reappropriation of the state construction funding for the Public Library Construction Act grant funding. But within that also, of course, is the increased funding, which was a $2.6 million increase and a $240,000 increase for public library per capita and the school library grant program in FY21 and moving that into FY22. Of course, there's a companion piece to that, which is the authorizing legislation that allows the secretary to actually award those amounts to school libraries and to an extent the public libraries as well. That legislation is continuing to move forward. It's Senate Bill 2232. We're watching that very closely. It did pass the Senate unanimously last week and has now moved on to the House. So should that occur, the plan at the moment is to, if it's effective prior to July 1, we would go back, especially in the case of the school libraries, and make a second increase to everyone and make that effective in FY21. So that is our plan at the moment. As far as the budget as well, what we have to do with the receipt of the federal funding, the American Rescue Plan Act funding for Illinois, as we did with the CARES Act money, is now incorporate that into the state budget request, because it is one thing for a state to receive the money, but Illinois, like many other states, then has to have legislative approval to actually expend that funding. So that is where we're at right now with the what is now called the ARPA funding, which is a little over $4.7 million for libraries in the state. We met this morning with, as I said, with IMLS, and the ARPA funding, the CARES Act funding that we already have in place for the state were discussed. They did, bring up the uniqueness of Illinois and how we really do try to grant this money out. The CARES Act funding ended up being about 300 grants across the state, which is rather unique within the country. No other state library is really trying to take on that volume of granting. We will plan to do the same, I'm sure, with the ARPA funding, but we're trying to now define exactly what are the final parameters of what that funding will look like. Those applications would all be for fiscal year 22. Starting dates probably after July 1 with expenditure authority through September 30 of 2022. IMLS had, some guidelines that they issue to all state library agencies as far as how that should be utilized within the state. Crosby Kemper, the director of IMLS, really stressed how that funding could be utilized as a response to the pandemic. That was why they sought this. So what we learned in the past year, what do libraries need now moving forward? So everyone should be looking forward to information from us directly, from the library systems and any newsletters regarding those categories for grant offerings. We will begin finalizing now, after multiple conversations with IMLS, exactly what those specifics would look like and make that the library community aware. It would not be limited to public libraries. Illinois has a long-standing history of trying to make our funding available to libraries of all types in the states, and we would certainly try to do that again with this funding. So it's a significant increase. It's a significant opportunity for everyone in the state, and so we do look forward to this coming year. So that is really, I think, the highlights of my two topics. So if there are any specific questions.
Do you expect to offer grant opportunities? Is that what you think you'll do? Is
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. And one-time expenditures will be more
One-time expenditures,
Popular.
that's the tricky part with all of this
Yeah.
funding is the sustainability. It's a wonderful opportunity, but the federal government has admitted that, they've built in no sustainability for this, and there's certainly no replacement of this funding within the state budgets either. And, while this has been discussed, we literally just received this award a few weeks ago, literally like 2 weeks ago, it came in on paper. And no one could do anything with it until then. So
it seems like a great opportunity for, capital things like buildings, for, I would think, technology, because there's money for broadband too, that is, as I think we're indicating, that isn't
correct.
necessarily going to libraries. It seems that, part of the difficulty, and like you say, it's a wonderful problem, is that there's this money, but then there's all this other money too. And so,
Right.
yeah, we really need to keep an eye on this. And I know ILA is keeping an eye on it all as well.
They are, and there's so many pots of money that may become available to the libraries, but probably more specifically publics in some instances, and then schools and other areas. But this area of the whole technology issue, accessibility, digital inclusion efforts, really focusing on underserved populations within the states, which may be neighborhoods within a community. It depends upon how how far down a library wants to drill their service area that would be impacted with this funding. So I think there's opportunities all over the state. We too have had conversations with the new commissioner at the Chicago Public Library and what this means at the branch level, even for them. They're very interested as well. So it's a great opportunity. So we'll see how we can take this. As far as investment in capital needs, depending upon the dollar amount, we would have to have pre-authorization for IMLS or from IMLS grant by grant for those expenditures, which could delay it. So we'll have to be careful on how we roll that out.
So there's a few questions in the chat here. One is the state budget is finalized on generally the fiscal year begins on July 1st, but this money probably isn't going to roll out that fast, right?
I don't know. I mean, we're targeting for some time after July. It's possible it may be July 1. We'll simply see. I can't imagine with the dollar amount and the volume of applications we can anticipate for this, we're going to be able to physically process this in 8 weeks time at this point. So the state budget being finalized, it's targeted for May 31st this year, and yes, it does begin on July 1.
Right. And so then you would have to be authorized to be expended, and then libraries would have to obviously, ask for the money in some sort of way. And then you also said that it would have to be expended by July 2022.
September 30, 2022.
September 30, 2022. I think that's an important date to keep. There's a question in here from Beth Teppan about, and I know she's on the Rails board, some, library facility interest there, I think, right, Beth? So getting the money would happen this year, spending the money would happen next year. To put it very simply.
I see a question regarding bricks and mortar money.
Yes.
So this particular money is, at the federal level, is not for bricks and mortar. In fact, that's not a purpose of any funding right now from IMLS as far as under guidelines that they issue for the Library Services and Technology Act. However, there is still interest and work being done toward the Build America's Library Act, which would also be included in possibly in a greater package that the current administration is working towards. So we shall see how that goes. There have been various meetings with senators and legislators from Illinois regarding that effort. I am also noting hotspots and laptops. Certainly that is something that needs to be given consideration in this funding as well, as far as what libraries might need.
Kate, the question about Kate Hall was asking if everybody could please switch over their to send their chat to all panelists and attendees. Let's see, laptop. Oh, I was going to say, what about ventilation issues? That's certainly pandemic related, isn't it?
So an infrastructure might be permissible.
Okay.
That's yet to be determined. I think that's one of the questions that IMLS is still considering at their level as they're issuing more guidelines regarding this.
Okay. There was also a question about unrelated to the money, to any update on the free library card to students in unserved areas.
I can provide that.
All right.
We finally did receive comments back from the Joint Commission on Administrative Rules. The last couple of weeks, Joe Natale and I have taken a stab at some slight modifications to the rules that would go into effect with a second filing notice from our office, changing a bit as far as it would go to pre-K, and it would not be an 18-year-old limitation. It would be enrolled in high school at this point. Is the target, and we're working on the clarification on what a library might do when the school district has adopted free and reduced school lunches for the entire community, which Joe just noted last week has been extended by the federal government for another year, I believe. So, which they're certainly not aware of what's going on in Illinois with library cards when they're making those recommendations. So that's where we are. So that should be forthcoming quite soon here.
Okay, great. Other questions?
There's also an unrelated question here about Sopa, Greg. Will the state provide any guidelines with Sopa?
We're going to I'll have to get back to you about that because we've not really discussed that here too much with this at the state library yet.
That's all I see here.
Okay. Well, are you going to stick around, Greg? I hope to hear the rest of.
Yeah, I do want to hear at least the greater portion of this meeting today. So that's my intent.
All right, great, because we may have more questions that come to mind. But it sounds like it's just going to be we're going to have to really pay attention and.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. All right,
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you. All right, well, I guess we will turn this over then to Monica and Greg. I think, Monica, are you going to introduce Greg?
Just a brief introduction to share. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you Greg Pronovitz. Greg has spent more than 30 years in library consortium leadership, striving to empower libraries and librarians for his success in meeting the future and in making library materials more accessible in both traditional and the electronic form. He now works as a consultant with a focus on library delivery and logistics, advocacy, project management, and strategic planning. And Greg has worked as a consultant for Rails in our most recent RFI process and in our current RFP process. We're very excited for him to share his knowledge about potential innovations in library delivery operations. So Greg, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Monica. Well, thank you for inviting me here today. It's my pleasure to talk about the work that I've been doing with Mark Hatch, Monica Harris, and the Rails team to study library delivery service in the Rails area. What I hope to do today is to give you a quick overview of the study results that we found over the past year and a half, and then to talk about possible future enhancements to library delivery, ways to improve it. I'll be sharing a copy of this presentation with Rails so they can make it available to you in a PDF form if you'd like. And I'll try to monitor the chat, but if anybody sees anything that I don't catch, please bring my attention to it. And we have a Q&A at the end, so we can get it there too. I'm going to share my screen.
See it.
Can everybody see a Rails truck?
We can't.
You can't. Okay, let me try that again.
Sorry, we can. Yes, we can see it.
Oh, okay, good. So we'll talk about the study. The study had 5 purposes: look at the cost effectiveness and quality of service, look at the advisability of bringing some outsourced work in-house and sending in-house work to a contractor, and exploring options to automate services and to make recommendations about the highest quality services. In studying the quality and cost effectiveness, we visited the service centers, held focus groups at each service center, surveyed members, dialogued with vendors, issued a request for information. And in terms of quality, we looked at the survey results and the focus groups. For cost effectiveness, we looked at a national survey that was conducted of library delivery services around the country and compared Rails costs to those. And we're hoping the RFI would give us some information, but unfortunately it was very limited. The member comments in the focus groups were overwhelmingly positive, and members really appreciated what delivery did to benefit the patrons. And the survey results also indicated a very high level of satisfaction with Rails services. There were suggestions for improvement, and they were solving typical library delivery problems of a late driver, setting off alarms, the typical things that happen when you have a delivery service going on in libraries. Some folks had asked for simplifying the workflow and improving the integration with the LSAP systems in Illinois. As far as cost effectiveness was concerned, we found that Rails was in a similar range to other library delivery services around the country. Unfortunately, the RFI was inconclusive, and we decided that it was best to issue a request for proposal to get concrete pricing from potential vendors so we could compare the price of Rails delivery services to an outsourced version. And as Deirdre said, that this is a time of tight budgets and we need to look at saving money where we can. When we looked at the work that's done by the contractor at the Elmhurst Service Center, we found that the quality of service provided by Rails drivers and sorters was evaluated more highly. In fact, it was off the charts. And the quality of service provided by the contractor was pretty good too. So, but obviously Rails won out on that score. But in terms of cost comparisons, we couldn't find any acceptable solutions to bring delivery back in-house from the Elmhurst Service Center that would save Rails money. So the recommendations at the end of the study were to have Rails continue to maintain its customer service focus. That 97% positive rating for delivery is, like I said, off the charts. Keep going, keep doing that. Examine efficiencies such as automation that I'll be talking about, and to conduct an RFP to determine cost effectiveness, and we are in the process of preparing an RFP to issue probably pretty soon to do that. So in terms of exploring automation options, there's manual sorting, which uses labels. And what we're defining as automation is labelless sorting, where a system determines the destination of an item instead of a handwritten or printed label. Labelless sorting can be an automated materials handling system, and I'll show you some of those next, as well as semi-automated sorting, which we're calling sort to light, that allows a machine to determine the destination, but it has a human sorter. Some of the steps required for automation options are to seek collaboration with stakeholders. As we talked about this with libraries and with the LSAP folks, we found that there was an information gap, and we decided that it was really important to share information about labelless sorting with the members, hence today's meeting. This is to inform a wider group. We've talked to the board and resource sharing folks and the LSAP leaders. Now we're speaking to all the members about this, and looking forward to hearing your reaction and questions about this. We also decided that aligning the services statewide would be useful to consider what's happening in Heartland, what's the state library looking at, what's Chicago Public doing, and also to look at alternative hubs or service centers for delivery. We thought that automating, if there's going to be a big investment in technology, that it might make sense to take the Elmhurst Service Center and the Bolingbrook Service Center and shift that to the optimal location, so only one investment in technology would be needed instead of two for those two heaviest service centers. In terms of manual sorting, this is a typical Rails sorting pod. The sorter would stand here on this comfortable rubber mat that's made for standing for long periods of time, as library sorters do, and sort into this L-shaped pod of totes, and it's very efficient. There's not a lot of walking. This is about as efficient as you can get with manual sorting. Rails has done a great job with this. And when we talk about an automated materials handling system, or AMH, I want to show you a very fast motion video of Clackamas County in Oregon, just to show you how it works. This isn't real, this is fast motion, but it shows you what happens in a automated library sorting environment for anyone who hasn't seen one yet. You can see you have people feeding items onto the belts, and then you have a couple of operators maintaining the bins that the belt is feeding into. In an environment, they'd be moving the totes once they get full, replacing them with empty ones, and staging them for delivery. That's kind of entertaining and fun, and nobody can really move that fast. But that is an AMH. This is an AMH at Cincinnati Public Library, which is more along the lines of the kind of size that might suit Rails needs. So again, this has two operators feeding items onto the belts, and one operator moving and staging totes, as you can see here. I estimate there are about 150 totes in this picture. And if you figure that there are 30 to 35 items in each tote, you've got 4,000 or 5,000 labels that were put on by library staff to make this, that were saved in this environment of an AMH, that 4,000 or 5,000 labels did not have to be put on these items to get them sorted. And next I wanted to talk a little bit about labelless sorting. And these pictures are from the vendor warehouse that serves, one of the vendor warehouses that serve libraries in Massachusetts. There are 3 warehouses there, and the sorters wear they wear a barcode reader on their finger, and this is a machine that transmits the barcode to a computer system, and the computer system talks to the automated library system and says, where does this go? And a little light lights up to tell the sorter where to put the item, so no label is required. In Sort to Light in Massachusetts, I used to be the director of the Massachusetts Library System, so I'm very familiar with this. They sort 14 million items a year at 3 service centers with 7 shared ILSs, and they deliver to a total of 550 libraries. Probably about 350 of them are within the automated sorting centers because they have a shared ILS. And I'll show you a little video from Massachusetts. And I have to turn my sound off because Vimeo doesn't let me do that. But you'll see how it works. These are the lights. They can have 3 operators. Each one has their own color when the system tells where to put an item in a tote. We thought this was really innovative when we first saw it, putting a barcode reader on your wrist. And they're sorting by hand, very much like they sort in Rails. This pod is not as efficient as Rails pods. It's not an L shape, it's more of a box. But this is very efficient for libraries to not have to label. And it kind of shows you how it works. So what I wanted to talk about now is the advantages of labelless sorting. The biggest advantage is that library staff no longer need to store, print, or apply labels to most outgoing materials. And when we were looking at this during the study, we were considering automating the Elmhurst and Bolingbrook centers in a single location, and that location would handle about 6 million items per year, which is 2/3 of Rails volume. And when things get multiplied by 6 million, they add up. And here's a really good question. With Sort to Light, how do they handle items when the barcode is inside the packaging book? Would that mean we would all have to tag our items on the outside only? And that's one of the things that I think folks in Illinois and Rails should consider, that if the barcode is always on the outside in a similar location, it will make this possible, but it will also ease the repetitive motion and workflow for anyone who works at a circulation desk. So other advantages of labelless sorting are that the systems are very accurate. Missorts are less frequent than with manual sorting. And here's another question. With AMH, all libraries would need to be RFID, correct? No, that is not correct. Barcodes are totally acceptable for labelless sorting, both AMH and Sort to Light. The universal barcode placement that I mentioned before, again, would provide efficiency not only to the 6 million delivery transactions at that joint service center, but to millions more transactions in all libraries. So no circulation clerk would ever have to fish around in the book to find out if the barcode's in the front, the back, or outside. Patrons who are using self-check devices can always depend on the barcode being on the outside. Labelless sorting systems can provide simple tracking to learn where an item was sorted. Some of the AMH systems offer really detailed tracking of items, and they also allow check-in of entire totes of material because it creates an inventory of what's in that tote, sort of a manifest, and they can all be checked at once. You can use a labelless sorting system to provide finer levels of sorting, such as sorting holds and returns and branches separately. Okay, I see someone mentions that their barcodes are inside, but they use RFID. My suggestion is to look at if most of the libraries are on barcodes, to stick with that. But we could talk to vendors about a hybrid system that can do both. We'll see.
Greg,
I
just to
talked
clarify,
about saving time for 6 million items.
Greg,
When you
can I
multiply
just
6
ask,
million, let's say you save 5 seconds per item, that saves over 8,000 hours of labor per year, or the equivalent of 4 full-time staff members. Saving paper. If each of those 6 million labels was 4 inches long, it would reach from Burr Ridge past Youngstown, Ohio, if you laid them out. They would get wet going across the lake, but how would AMH handle legacy items that have barcodes inside? It will be both difficult and expensive for libraries that currently place inside to relabel. That is a very important question, and that's part of the working together to create a statewide sort of coherence for library delivery. That this is a discussion that I would suggest that you have. Is it beneficial to Illinois and Rails libraries to create a universal barcode policy? So I have a few examples here, and they'll be in the handout. King County Library System handles 20 million items a year in a single sorting system, probably one of the fanciest in the country. New York City has another very fancy library sorting system, and they handle 7.5 million for 150 branches there, shared by New York and Brooklyn Public. These are a few other large-scale labelless sorting operations. And I think when the recommendations that we had at the end of our study are first, sharing the information about labelless sorting to seek collaboration, seeking productivity enhancements with the Shared ILS Consortium, the LSAPs, seeking alignment of statewide services. This is a big question. In Massachusetts, when we faced this question, we had many libraries saying, we can't put our barcodes on the outside. But we did eventually reach consensus on the value of this and on the practice of doing it, and we provided some support to members to do that. I already mentioned exploring alternative hubs. A couple of other recommendations that came out of the study were for Rails to brand its delivery services components. We found that there was some confusion between what's Rails and what's the LSAP. So Rails is taking steps to identify their part in that more clearly, and hopefully there'll be a recognizable brand that will help libraries. And everybody in the library can't understand everything, but we want the libraries to call the right service center when they have an issue or have a suggestion. Again, seeking efficiencies in library workflows. In Massachusetts, the LSAPs, before the implementation of labelless sorting, they were all kicking out automatically a shipping label, so the libraries didn't have to file and sort copies or handwrite them. There was just an automated process. You check the item out, zip, a label pops off the printer, and you put it in the book. You might consider labeling the labels with hold and return, so the holds could be processed first. And one of the LSAPs does route prioritization that allows libraries to lend to people on their own route, which creates a much more efficient much more efficient delivery system. So I think when we look at automation, look at opportunities to improve the efficiency of delivery, improve the costs for Rails, and also to reduce the use of resources, time, and materials in libraries. And now I will try and catch up with all the questions, and I will turn off my screen sharing so I can see what's going on out there. Okay.
There are several questions in the chat, and so we'll try to cover them maybe as
So
best
where
we can.
did
So maybe
I'll go backwards through them. Does this proposal include iShare libraries that are serviced by Rails delivery? The iShare system, Massachusetts has a similar system to iShare, and it was not added to the labelless sorting for a couple of reasons. One is that the delivery volume among the users of what they called Commonwealth Catalog are not very heavy users of it, and it didn't make financial sense to automate it. Autographics, the vendor for that product, also doesn't support the kind of SIP2 connection that would be required. But I think they said, I'm not positive, but I think they said they would consider it. So, and unfortunately, I couldn't hear you, but now I can.
Okay, good. I think, I just want to clarify that this isn't a proposal at this point. This is information that we bring to you because this is something that's been done in other places. In this case, in Massachusetts. I see various comments about how we don't have the money for this, and I mean obviously this has a somewhat large price tag if you're thinking about the entire state and doing this and replacing barcodes and all that. We're not proposing. We want you to know this because we think that we need to begin planning for this kind of thing, because the cost of delivery is a lot of money, and the time that libraries spend applying labels, etc., is a lot of time, which also equals a lot of money. So that's why we're telling you this. That's why we want you to know all this, because it will help us all, talk together. Like Greg said, we need everybody to understand what the issues are and what the possibilities are, so that we can, have a good discussion about what a proposal might look like. I do want to say, I believe that this would be a good use for some of the federal money that Greg was talking about, the other Greg, Greg McCormick was talking about, because this reduces human touching of things. I mean, there's a lot of things that you could say about the sort of health and safety issues related to this, in addition to all the other economical things. But there's a lot of things that, a lot of additional things we could tell you about, like the bar cloning machines that I think that Massachusetts helped to, like, you rented them out to library. They just clone barcodes, you just, right? I mean, you just, like sort of clone a barcode and slap it on. So there are ways of getting through all this. But right now, we want to help you see the advantages to making these kinds of changes.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I sounded like it was a done deal. I get very excited about this.
Me too.
And I know how pleased the libraries in Massachusetts are with this. There is no major shared regional consortium like Rails that hosts, that provides services to multiple shared ILSs that uses an AMH yet. All of the AMH users are county systems, city systems. They're very local with one ILS. But Sort2Light has already been proven to work with multiple ILSs, and the AMH vendors feel that very comfortable that they could work with it. And I'm presenting this as someone who's a big supporter and have seen the success of labelless sorting. And I'm suggesting that you consider it, that you consider that universal barcode location. I'll tell you something kind of interesting, that our statewide delivery company, delivery committee, which was the state library, the shared ILSs, the regional library systems, and some librarians, we all decided that a universal barcode location was important. And I was assigned the task of informing the state that this was going to happen.
You're
As
lucky
as of such and such a date, all barcodes will be here. I get a lot of resistance.
It's shocking.
But I'll tell you, once we the way that we implemented it was, we told the libraries, LSAP by LSAP, that when you have 70% or 60% barcoded externally, we'll start automating your sorting. The libraries saw how useful it was in the LSAP that had implemented on a pilot basis, and they all found their way to get to that percentage so they could be a part of it. And barcode duplication was one of the ways they did it. And many libraries just barcoded their whole collection. And the circulation people love it.
I think Heartland already has this, right?
I think they have a policy already. Mark, do you know what that policy is?
Yes, it is the upper right of the front of each item.
Which I think, we should probably, consider going with that. Why would we want to like not go with that since they already have it? I mean, not that we're going to do this right away, guys, but I'm just saying, you got to, it doesn't make any sense for us to come up with our own policy. It's not that unless there's like a really good reason to not do it when we get to that point, right? I mean, it's.
And to reinforce that, we know these are big conversations,
Right.
And that's part of why we wanted to be able to just, as Deirdre and as Greg have said today, is just to begin to start to think about what is possible if we can have these conversations. There's a lot of conversations that have to happen at the consortia level and with, the other member libraries also, just to hear more about what's possible. So this is really just a chance to hear about what's happening in other states and how they're approaching delivery in an efficient way. And we want to make sure you had a chance to hear about it.
And in answer to Dawn Tortorella, I will reinforce again, we are not asking you to do this. And I have no date, no idea if or when we would ever ask you to do it. But this is something that other consortia states have done, and there's a lot of benefit to it. It would save money and time. So, there's a lot of conversation about barcodes. What else do people want to know about?
There's something about QR codes here. Could QR codes be an acceptable alternative?
I can't say for sure. Is that something that a library system is using to check out their books? Are they actually using QR codes instead of barcodes?
Yeah, we don't know. That was just a question here.
Yeah, if an ILS can read a barcode, probably an AMH or a sort to light system can read the barcode, because all you're doing is when let's say the AMH book passes under a scanner, there's a barcode reader in the scanner. It sends that barcode to the ILS with a query, where does this go? The ILS sends back the destination, bucket number 5, and the system just pushes it into bucket number 5. So if a system uses a QR code, I imagine that could be read, but I'm not sure. I would have to double check with the vendors.
And just to clarify, all barcodes would have to be on the outside, correct? There's a question here about legacy items? How would AMH handle legacy items that have barcodes inside? It would be
That- that-
difficult and expensive to replace all those.
It, it wouldn't be feasible to expect a machine to open a book and find the barcode, or to have the operators search for the barcodes. If they wanted to ship, when we were doing the 60 or 70%, anything that didn't have an external barcode had to have a label, so then somebody could sort it manually. But it just caught on, and barcode duplicators became very widespread, and people were just duplicating barcodes for anything going into delivery and putting it on the outside.
I'm sure that we can, there's some questions about cost, cost savings. Yes, we can certainly quantify. We don't have it today, but obviously we would do that. And I'm sure that we can get information from other states. And maybe Greg even knows today. I don't know. He does. I haven't asked him before. You know, what is the kind of savings that and I'm not, so there's savings to libraries and savings to, you know, consortia as well. But do you have anything to say about that, Greg?
I would say that the AMH, I'm not, I don't have details on the costs of operating an AMH, but I am familiar with the costs of sort to light. And actually the cost of sort to light is a little higher than the cost of manual sorting. However, our goal was to improve delivery by removing the labels to save the library's time and resources and space behind the circ desk. The libraries were being buried under books when things got really busy. And our goal was to make life easier for the libraries. It didn't actually save the mass library system any money. But the libraries, and in fact, when we had a budget crunch, we told the members we need to cut our budget, and we said we could save a little money by getting rid of sort to light. Nobody wanted to do that.
Mm-hmm.
They chose other avenues to save money. The AMH manufacturers, if we decide to look at that on a very detailed, thorough procurement, we would ask them to demonstrate how many operators would be required, what the throughput is on the system, and then we could compare that to what we're spending now for manual sorting and multiple warehouses and the time that it takes. Many of the large systems that switch to AMHs are doing it because they couldn't sort fast enough to move the stuff through overnight. They just had too much material and not enough space, so they needed to automate, like in the King County situation. So I think the savings that would come from this, they fall mostly on the libraries. It benefits the libraries to do this more than it benefits the consortium.
So there's a couple things here, Greg's. That this question, so we could duplicate the barcode as we put it out for delivery. Is that correct?
That there are barcode duplication machines where you scan the barcode and it spits out a new one. You put it on the right location on the outside, you drop it in delivery. That's
Right.
how it was done.
Okay, that's what I thought you meant.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of RFID libraries, I guess that's true, that there would be no savings as you already use an RFID based self-check, but I think, and that's great that you're already saving money, but for, you know, the greater good, and sort of, you know, increasing just general availability of library resources.
Well, I think when you talk about RFID libraries that are in one of the shared
Right.
LSAP systems, they need to have a barcode if they're going to lend those items to other libraries that don't have RFID readers. So there's got to be a barcode somewhere anyway, unless the whole LSAP is RFID, which I don't believe is the case anywhere in Rails, is it?
No,
So the
Well,
barcode needs
don't
to be
know.
there somewhere.
Right. And as far as iShare goes, again, we would love to include everybody. I'm not, I didn't mean to imply that iShare wouldn't be included. I just meant that it's not a proposal yet. Thank you, Alex, for an example of a bar clone or barcode duplicator. As I say, this is information because we want you to get excited. And like Rick and I get excited. Well, no, I remember going to ALA many, 7, 8, 9 years ago now, and you were doing this, and I was like, my God, that is so fantastic. So
It's
There's a
worth
question here
exploring.
about reducing, if this would reduce the number of days of delivery based on greater information being collected automatically.
right, I asked Beth about that. I think what she means, and correct me, Beth, if I'm wrong, that your volume would go down. I don't see why that would be the case, and so that means the number of days that you get delivery would go down. I don't know why that would be the case, but maybe I'm missing something. Anybody else have an idea?
I don't think this affected the volume of delivery as much as it just made life easier in the library to handle delivery.
That's what I would, yeah. And then there's another let's see, what is this? Megan Go, the sort system would be connected to Sierra or whatever the ILS is in some way. So even if it was on hold going to a different library, it knows that. Yes, right? That's the point of sort to light.
What happens is the barcode passes under the reader. The reader would normally poll first the library that delivery route encompasses mostly. It might be SWAN, it might be CCS, depending on the route. If it didn't find it there, it would poll the next one. It kind of goes through a series of polling. It has to talk to a computer to know where to put it.
I think that, would Rails provide the barcode duplication? I think that's exactly the kind of thing that the system might do, but we're, that's down the road a piece. Because we do need some, investment in the sort to light technology at some point. And we need to get the barcodes sorted out, so to speak. What do you think about buying investing in the sort to light, Greg McCormick?
I mean, that's been a topic that's discussed here before.
Right.
Specific to the ARPA money, which was suggested, I think, in chat and we've discussed about before. I'm not certain how we're going to, how we could make the case to IMLS about that. But I think it's something that still warrants some investigation.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. And that's what we're doing here. We're just investigating. We want you to be informed. We don't want people to be surprised at any point. So, and, Greg has, done, Greg Pronovitz, he's really, an expert in this, probably never really intended to be an expert, but is an expert. And
It's just become something that I've been fascinated with, and we did finally do labelless sorting. We couldn't afford the machine in Massachusetts, but we could afford the sort to light. And
right.
Sort to light, it's only used in that library system. No other library system uses it. It was a homegrown solution from the delivery vendor in Massachusetts who made a bid to take over. Massachusetts went through a merger just like Illinois did when you went from multiple systems to 2. We went from 6 to 1. And that vendor won the bid because they had that sort to light system. And now it's And I'll tell you, in Massachusetts, there are 9 shared ILSs plus an iShare type system. And only 7 of the ILSs are on sort-to-light. 2 have not requested to come onto it. They're sorted manually still. And the iShare equivalent is not high enough volume to consider automating it. It wouldn't save anyone any time or money. So we just leave it as is.
Mhm.
There are a lot of there are complexities to this that it's difficult to go into on this call, but as you explore it more deeply, and should the members say, yes, let's look into this, we can start outlining all of the details that need to be considered and look at a procurement that would make sense for Rails and perhaps Heartland to have them work together.
That is perfect, Greg. Yes, thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks, everybody, for all your great questions. It sounds like there's an ongoing conversation about barcodes on the outside. I think that we will probably have to move on, but certainly something that needs to be explored. I know as a librarian and having been involved in these conversations that the idea, initially was what, putting something on the cover of the book? That's a terrible idea. But that's about us. It's not about the patron. It's not about the circulation clerk. Not having the best access to the barcode so that their job is easier, they don't get carpal tunnel syndrome, etc. And patrons using self-check. It's not about us, it's about our customers or our patrons. So we just have to keep that in mind too. So I think we'll move on, if that's okay, Greg Pronovitz. And
well, thank you for
you
having
so
me.
much.
Happy to come back if there's a follow-up meeting.
Okay, and we're still getting questions, so we'll take note of all of them, right, Mary Witt, and get answers to everybody. And I think maybe you need to find a way to have a conversation about barcodes in your consortia or some smaller group like that. Thank you. Okay. Next item on the agenda is discussion of the statewide database funding for a database package. We've talked about this before, I think at member updates, this idea that there would be new funding for, in the case of Illinois, set aside, appropriated, obtained at the state level to fund databases, online resources for all libraries in Illinois, that there would be a selection committee, a procurement process that would be, very, have a lot of member input, etc. We've talked to you all, a lot of you, about this before. This is something that has been going on in other states for quite a while, including Massachusetts, actually 48 other ones, if you want to look for examples. And Layla's here, she can tell you some examples that you're interested. In any case, some of our board members have been very actively pursuing this, notably Becky Spratford, who is on our board, as well as a trustee in LaGrange. And others have also reached out. And so at this point, what's happened is that we did have a meeting with the House Minority Leader, Jim Durkin, and his staff a few weeks ago. And he did file a bill, House Bill 2071. And what you want to look at if you go and look online is the amendment language, which at this point establishes a task force to identify the need for and the funding for a statewide database package. What we have proposed what we think would be needed for Illinois is $5 million a year. We'd be happy with $3 million, but don't tell the legislature I said that. Many of our neighboring states do this. We know that Michigan, I think, has about $3 million, and what they have told us is that because this eliminates duplication, and because so many of our libraries buy the same database from vendors over and over and over again, right? So this would eliminate that, plus it would help the libraries that can't afford any databases, and save the money of larger libraries that are buying them, but could then spend the money on a different database or something else. So anyway, in Michigan, they estimate that they save libraries $90 million a year through doing this. 90 million. And that number is, in Ohio, it's 50 million, 50 million. So anyway, so the bill got filed. Some co-sponsors have signed on as well. Michelle Mussman, Kathleen Willis, Katie Stewart, and Tara Costa Howard. I think a lot of us know Kathleen Willis's name. She's a librarian. I think Michelle Mussman, I think, represents the area around Schaumburg. I think Kathleen Willis is around Addison. I think Katie Stewart and Tara Costa Howard are down in the Springfield area. We also have I just found out last night or yesterday, there's a new chief sponsor, Martin McLaughlin, a Republican who I understand from Leader Durkin's chief aide, is very excited about this possibility. So this task force I don't remember if I said this now, that this would establish a task force to look into this and how to do it. That would be appointed by the state library. Thank you very much, Dawn. I had that completely wrong. The task force would be, very representative of, Rails, Heartland, Chicago, ILA, Carly, etc. And would, have be convened in next January. Am I saying that right? No, they would have to report back to the General Assembly by January of next year. So we're hopeful that this will pass and that we will get to work on this. That's all. That's as much as I know. It's in the House. It's been re-referred to the House Rules Committee. Not quite sure why that's happened. I've asked Diane and Greg McCormick, and they don't know either. I guess it happens. Do you know anything else, Greg? Last time I checked with you, you did not.
No, I did not.
Yep. So how long the process would be, Barbara Love wants to know. Well, if it gets passed, as I said, the task force would report back to the General Assembly no later than next January, if I have my dates correct. And so we were hoping that the funding would be for start next July 1st. Is that what you mean, Barbara Love? Yes, that was what she meant. So it's House Bill 2071. I definitely recommend that you go look at that. And, if you have an opportunity, please tell your legislators that you are happy about this, that this would be great for libraries, would save you money and help libraries that can't afford it, and also be available to unserved residents. Questions? No questions. Okay. All right. Moving on to COVID-related news. It's nice that we've talked all this time without really talking too much about. Yes, Jennifer Cottrell says nobody has questions because barcodes aren't aren't part of it, right? Moving on to COVID. So the latest realm news, that's the steering committee, the IML 2071, Mick, is the bill number. So realm is the steering committee. That's the project, the IMLS project, research about, fomite, the transmission of COVID via fomites. They've really, I think, based on the CDC's guidance, I think we've, we've ended our quarantine period. I think that it's been pretty much resolved and agreed that the transmission of the virus via surfaces is not a big risk. It's more about air, particles, and wear a mask, wash your hands, social distancing. So the steering committee has moved, and realm has really moved on to the next, the issue of vaccinations and vaccine education, and helping to get information out to everybody, really. We've also been having a conversation about the information not being available to, just as the vaccine really hasn't been, to underserved populations or communities, and just all of the EDI issues related to health and safety information. So we're trying to figure out what to how to improve our communication. And obviously we talk quite a bit about how libraries, very trusted agencies, and how important we can be in this work. So that is the latest realm news. So I will turn it over to Monica to talk about more about safety, other safety issues for us here.
Thanks, Deirdre. And so, of course, as Deirdre mentioned, and as you all probably all know, Rails did end its quarantine requirement for materials moving through delivery on April 12th. We have received positive feedback on that for the most part, and are of course interested in your questions as we talk more about this. But continued research does show that COVID-19 is mainly spreading through respiratory droplets in the air. That was, of course, supported most recently by that CDC report on indoor transmission that was published on April 5th, which was definitely part of the conversation that we had here at Rails around the delivery quarantine. That change, of course, only applies to materials that are transported through Rails delivery, but we continue to advise each Rails library to make decisions on any additional quarantine periods you feel are necessary based on your own unique community and your own unique environment. We do still have a list of the precautionary measures that Rails staff are taking just to make sure that delivery is as safe as possible. That list is available. It's linked along with this other information like the CDC report on the Pulse page that is for COVID-19. But I will also put a link to the safety procedures in the chat. So if you want to take a look at that, you can see that as well. But it really is just about continuing to make sure that we're following the most recent guidelines that we can, that we continue to provide the safest possible experience for our libraries that we can, and that we continue to move forward as our libraries are. So any questions about quarantine or any of the changes that happened in April?
I think it might be 2701, not 2071. Did I misspeak? I didn't mean to.
No, it's 2071.
2071?
Correct.
Huh. Okay, this is weird. It's not about. Anyway.
Someone added the link in the chat to it.
I know, it's all about salary reductions, and it's weird. I don't know. All right, I'll figure that out later. So any questions for Monica?
Yeah, the link is going to a previous General Assembly bill.
That's what I thought. Okay, you got it. It's this year. It's 2021, 2071.
And
Yeah,
Joe
that's it.
Philpott just put the correct link in the
Yes.
chat if you want to take a look at that.
Thank you very much. Okay. Okay, thank you, Monica. Any other questions so far? Do you want to keep going on that then?
Sure. And so then our next piece that we have here is really on the status of member meetings at our Rails service centers. So as libraries are currently continuing to consider the safety of in-person programming here at Rails, we are also looking at our own programming and the kinds of continuing education and training that Rails does, and thinking about when we can safely make some of those things available to Rails members. We have been offering the option of safely distanced in-person meetings for our board for some time now. And we haven't yet heard much from members who are eager for Rails to offer in-person meetings just yet, but we are very interested in what you have to say. We do have some limitations as to in-person meetings, just as you do, as we're continuing to follow the Restore Illinois guidelines. Our spaces do not allow for large capacity in terms of the number of people that can meet in our spaces. So for instance, most of the Rails rooms would have a limitation of less than 15 people who would be able to attend our meetings, which obviously doesn't make for an ideal meeting when we can have some virtual meetings that include, like the meeting today, 300 plus people. So that is part of what we're considering. Those large capacity meetings do mean a reduced attendance. And sometimes the speakers that we have also don't have availability to do in-person meetings. Some of the people that we work with directly still are not able through their workplaces to attend things in person, and virtual is what their workplaces are considering safe at this time. Rails in-person networking has also been reduced pre-pandemic in terms of the in-person meetings versus the virtual meetings. And that's because our virtual meetings have consistently found better attendance and time efficiency. We are also finding that in some of our library types that we serve, like school libraries, they really don't have the ability to get away from the building. And so being able to attend meetings virtually has been a good benefit for them as well. We have also heard that many libraries that previously did not have a lot of comfort with Zoom and virtual meetings have really had to get comfortable with Zoom through the pandemic. And so we don't have the same barrier to entry for Zoom or technology that we used to have in the past. So we're carefully monitoring how some of those things are happening. But we are also hearing from many of you that you are really missing the opportunity to be able to connect in person as soon as it's safe to do so. And so that is something that we're also continuing to keep in mind. Currently, the current guidelines for our plan is to hold off on offering any wider in-person meetings for now, but we do plan to revisit this in the summer as things are constantly changing, and we want to make sure that we're constantly scanning the environment. But we wanted to give you an update on that. And also hear a little bit more from you in here if you have any questions for us. And I can see there's a lot of comments in the chat, comments about what people are enjoying about the virtual meetings. I know Juanita Durkin is saying she'd love to see Zoom or remote attendance to be available even in a post-pandemic world. It makes it easier to keep up without compromising staffing at the library. Stephanie Geitz says, for those of us who work in small libraries and do not always have coverage, I think the virtual meetings should be kept as well as in person. Also seeing some support for hybrid meetings in the future when that's possible. So a version that allows for both in-person and virtual. And some people are saying they're zoomed out, which I know we're hearing from our school colleagues as well. So definitely a common response that we're hearing.
Right. I mean, I think a balance is really important because it's definitely there's a burnout with watching the screen all day long. I'm sure we've seen plenty of those articles.
Yes.
But it's definitely a savings, and definitely that, more inclusive, more, available, equitable.
Mm-hmm. These are great comments that are coming through on the chat, and I know we really appreciate receiving those. Similarly, if you have requests or if you are interested in seeing different things from Rails, we're always interested in hearing that. So feel free to get into contact with the Rails staff, and I know we're happy to answer your questions and to take your considerations under account. think that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Okay, I think now, does anybody have any more questions or comments? So, stay tuned. This is all changing every day. I mean, just today there was CDC issued a statement that, being maskless outside, if you're fully vaccinated, is acceptable if you're not in a crowded situation. So every day it seems like there's a new, in this case, good news. So we're paying very close attention, and we'll, keep up to date with what the latest science is and the latest recommendations. So Layla's going to talk to us about discounts and group purchases.
Okay, thank you. Of course, our hope with deals and discounts is to save our members money and just help offset the challenges that exist to our library budgets. In fiscal year 20, we saved over $1 million through deals and discounts. And that's because when we all work together, we bring a great economies of scale to the process. We have over 1,400 libraries in Rails, and of course, even more when we extend that across the state. We are looking for partnerships with vendors that will benefit our libraries. We look for quality deals that include proven, solid resources or trending new resources that maybe offer a discount. We hope for transparency and logical pricing, and that we can extend to all of you. So I'm always happy to hear about resources that you're interested in. You know what you need, and many of our deals are the result of those requests, suggestions, and feedback. One that is relevant right now is Read Squared. That is an online tool for managing library reading programs, including summer reading. So we've got over 40 members currently subscribing to that. And it came about actually as a direct request from members last year, but also in response to the trend of the pandemic related resources that were needed. Another resource that was also pandemic related were some curbside services, including MyLibro, PPE resources. MyLibro curbside service has additionally discounted their prices recently. So if that's something that you're thinking might be relevant for you now, make sure that you check that out. Another really important trend that's emerged at Rails is community engagement, data analysis, and targeted marketing tools. We added Patron Point in January. Orange Boy just closed and was posted today, and just closed the deal on MyLibro Insights, which we will post by the end of this week. We also have OpenGov and Gale Analytics related to this topic. We're exploring more resources in the K through 12 library type. We've got EBSCO middle school packages and elementary school packages that we recently added. Comics Plus gave us a deal in March. That's graphic novels that they've got an elementary, a middle, and a high school package. This is an area that we've got a lot of opportunity in and a lot of need for. So we will continue to look at those as well as the other library types and some opportunities that exist there. We're also looking at exploring discounting opportunities above and beyond e-resources to see what things that we can get for our members in that arena. I'm going to share our deals and discounts page. In case some of you haven't visited it, you do need to be logged in with your L2 password and your email address. One thing I would mention is that pricing that we include on this page is for our Rails members only, so please don't share that outside of Rails. I've scrolled down to the middle of the page, so you didn't have to watch me scroll through it, but in the top section, we have our newest deals and discounts listed, as well as any current renewals. And then about halfway down the page, you'll see the offers that are just on the page at all times. And you can sort them by library type. and you'll see that you can just kind of scroll through the list. And then if you're interested in one, you can click on the arrow to get some further detail. This one, Homeless Training Institute, is one that we also added recently. This one offers basically some staff training tools for to help libraries who are dealing with homeless, addicted, and mentally ill patrons who are struggling to follow the rules. So this is what the page looks like. My contact info is on the top right-hand side of this page, and I hope that you'll come back to it often. It is a living document, and we're just constantly looking for different deals and different pricing, even on things that we currently have deals for. I'm going to stop the share here. I do welcome your feedback on current discounts, pricing, and issues. Your comments can give me really important words that I can use in the negotiation process, and your participation give those words weight. So one example I can give of that is Communico. They adjusted some of their prices and value add-ons in direct response to members' concerns that were brought to us. We have nearly 50 libraries who participate in that deal. I also urge you to participate in Rails billing when it's available for these resources. We have a stellar finance department, and they are very detailed, and they keep a close eye on what is coming through and bring my attention to anything that is a discrepancy. And I have personally sent back invoices to the vendors that where we need some billing adjustments that maybe didn't happen. So it's also the best tool for quantifying the value that we are getting from the Deals and Discounts program as a total program. So I urge you to take advantage of the billing. In addition, I wanted to talk about the fact that it takes time to work through the deals. And part of the reason for this is they're complex. They potentially involve a lot of libraries, a lot of money. And so it's just part of that process. Sometimes too, the deal doesn't work out, but that doesn't mean it will never work out. It just goes on the back burner, and we take a look at it again when maybe the timing is a little better. Each deal is basically its own project, not only from the time of kind of vetting out the resource and looking at negotiating and going through that process, but also once it is a deal, it's that process of the invoicing and renewal and things like that. We have recently signed on for a process called Consortium Manager that will help us at Rails work through and make this group purchasing process more efficient. It helps efficiency, it helps capacity, and there's also a member communications tool related to this that I think will also be helpful. Our core team for Consortium Manager include myself, Eric Bain, and Jody Rubel, but multiple other staff members will be involved as this project progresses. The first phase of the project, which we're working on now, will be data migration and a study of our current efficiencies. And then the process will unfold over the next several months. So those are some highlights. Are there questions that I can answer?
Well, there's a question here. I think it refers to Read Squared. It says, is that similar to or different from Beanstack?
It is similar to same type of program. Beanstack, and I guess this is a good thing to talk about. So Beanstack is another summer reading or reading program. And I know we've got probably about 50, maybe 80 libraries that are in Beanstack, but they were already in Beanstack when we were trying to get pricing. It's really hard, much harder, more difficult to get pricing when we have a lot of libraries that are already subscribing to something. The reason for that is we are asking the vendor right up front to take a big hit. It doesn't mean we never do it, and it doesn't mean it's never successful. It's just a longer process and involves more and isn't always successful, but sometimes can be. So that we did talk to Beanstack last May. I have not talked to them since then, but again, it doesn't mean that we can't and won't again, so.
There's also
And
a question, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
There's also a question about, is there a possibility of getting a deal or discount for Hoopla?
Hoopla is difficult. The per use products are hard to basically set up some kind of structure to get a discount on. So there are a few of those kinds of services, and that's really the difficulty there. We'll keep looking at ways that maybe we can leverage that in some way. I don't know if that would be like maybe some kind of adjustment to the per use price or something, but we do not currently have anything right now. One thing I forgot to mention is we do have several webinars coming up for some of our current discounts. The week of May 10th, we've got webinars for Learning Express, which is EBSCO, but they added this year 2 modules, the Job and Career Accelerator and Workforce Solutions, which I think for just what's happening in the workplace right now might be some good products for people. So they'll have webinars on those. Also, their new Prenda Code Club, we've got a new discount on that. Webinars also that week of May 10th. That is coding software for kids ages 8 through 18. And they're also doing webinars for Library Aware, which is like next read newsletters and promotional materials, that type of resource. The following week, Orange Boy has added 2 webinars for those of you who might be interested in that new discount. So that one is on the 18th and the 20th. They're all on our L2 calendar, as well as in the write-ups on the deals and discounts pages under those resources. Any other questions? All right, well, I just thank you all for again, your input and suggestions, and keep them coming, and we'll keep trying to find some good resources for you. Thank you.
Thanks, Leila. I would say the theme today has definitely been money saving, right? Library Aware webinar is May 11. Is that right, Leila?
I'll get the dates. We've got 6 of them. So
Okay, just put the link in chat. I think that would be great. Okay, Jessica is going to talk about Explore More Illinois reopening. Yay!
Hi, my name is Jessica Barnes. I'm the Special Projects Librarian here at Rails. Before I forget,
Whoops, you muted yourself by accident.
I thought I unmuted myself. I'm sorry. Let me
No,
start
you
again.
had. Yes.
My name is Jessica Barnes. I'm the Special Projects Librarian here at Rails, and I work on the Explore More Illinois Museum Pass program. Before I forget, I'm just going to put my email address in the chat. So if you have any questions about Explore More Illinois, just feel free to email me. As you may be aware, Explore More Illinois is Rails Museum Pass program that's open to Illinois public libraries. We started in April of 2019, and we shut down in March of 2020. I sent an email to all of our participating libraries saying that we would be shut down for 2 weeks, and we actually didn't restart until April 1st of this month. So we had about a year shut down, and we're really excited to be back. While we were shut down, we were still very busy. Right now, we have 300 Rails libraries participating in Explore More. And while we were shut down, we were also able to start adding Heartland libraries. So we have 50 Heartland libraries participating in the program right now as well. We have 17 attractions and probably like 20 or 21 offers that are available right now. We have several attractions that we had when we shut down that just aren't able to offer discounts right now, or they haven't reopened yet. So please keep checking back on our website, exploremoreillinois.org. We keep the list of current attractions updated, and we're expecting more to be added as certain limitations are lifted by the state. If you're interested in joining, you can just send me an email. If you're in a consortium or an LSAP, the process is very easy. I'll just need a few pieces of information from you. If you're a standalone, I can walk you through the process. We can set up a time to fill out the form together. So you can just send me an email and we'll get that squared away. If you go to our website, which is exploremoreillinois.org, you can watch a video of how Explore More Illinois works, of how you can your patrons can make a reservation, how searching for different attractions. We have FAQs, we have marketing materials for libraries. And one thing I would encourage you to do, if there is an attraction in your community that you think should be added to Explore More, on our For Libraries page on our website, we have an email template that you can use to send to attractions, letting them know what Explore More Illinois is and providing them my contact information. So you can just download that and then fill in the blanks of what you need and you can send it to potential attractions. One area of attraction that we're really trying to get right now are outdoor attractions, because we know that the numbers aren't as strict for outdoor attractions as they are for indoor. So things like gardens or parks, zoos. Also, we're starting to include park districts. Galesburg Park District and Peoria Park District have given us offers for their golf courses, for they have Galesburg has a lake that you can rent boats and take your family out on. So if your park district has those types of amenities, that might be also another way that we can add attractions in your community as well. I also want to let you know that on May 18th at 2 p.m., I'm doing a webinar on Explore More Illinois. This is great for libraries that have just joined, or if you just need a refresher on how to use Explore More Illinois, you can sign up on the L2 calendar. It will be recorded, so if you can't make it, it'll be sent to you as well. But we're really excited to be back, and I'm hoping as we go through the summer that more new and existing attractions will join us, and that there'll be just some really great opportunities for you and your patrons to take advantage of. I know I'm tired of just being cooped up in my house, and I can't wait to go to places around the state. So I hope that'll be the same for you and your patrons too. And I can answer any questions, or you can email me at your convenience.
Jessica, I know we were having conversations about Wisconsin and Michigan before, because they're very interested in it as well. Any update on that?
So before the pandemic, we had talked just briefly with Wisconsin about Wisconsin joining us. Some of their libraries would join us, and then they would also be working on getting attractions for Wisconsin. Then when COVID happened, and they had a new director at Wills too, so I think there was a transition period. So I'm hoping this summer we'll start like talking to them again and see where everything is with that, because I think that would be great, especially since we have so many libraries bordering with Wisconsin and people going back and forth, and so many people from Illinois who vacation in Wisconsin. That would be a great opportunity for us. But yeah, it kind of fell off when the shutdown happened.
Right, makes sense. Just curious.
Yeah.
All right, anybody else have any questions about anything or any news you want to share? We're getting close to the end time. I was just thinking about that, Jennifer, because I was just in Coal Valley last week. That, you should, I think, like, I mean, Hannibal, Missouri was the first thing that comes to mind.
I've actually emailed a few Missouri attractions, and we're going to see what we can do. Heartland's also going to be helping us since they're starting to let their members are starting to join Explore More. So they're using some of their contacts to try to get those. So that is something that we're definitely exploring. I have tried in vain to try to get Iowa attractions who are like on the other side of the Quad Cities with limited success. So if there's any libraries in that area who have connections with Iowa attractions, please let me know. We find that if there is a personal connection between a library, or you know a contact at those attractions, we have a better chance of them signing on than if I just send or make a phone call, you know, and I don't know who to talk to at that organization. So please let me know.
Okay, and yes, Indiana, Michigan, of course, yes. Just natural partnerships, so. Great. Anything else at this point? The addresses of the attractions on the website, unless they're already there. I mean, the physical street addresses, that kind of thing, Barbara? Is that what you mean? Yes.
On our website, we do have the current attractions. It has the city or village that the attractions are located, but if you need the exact address, that's something that perhaps we can add. So I'll look into that.
Great. Good question. Anything else on anything? Barcodes, going once, twice, 3 times. I'm kidding. I know it's a big issue. We need to find, you know, good ways of discussing all those issues. So, all right. I think then I will just thank everybody for coming, especially our presenters. Thank you, Greg McCormick. I know you had a busy day, so we really appreciate it, everybody. So, okay. Thank you all for coming. Bye.